Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Weigh In podcast. And on this week's episode of the Weigh In, we've got some good news for you. So it looks like there's been a flip around going on here with Jake Paul and Conor McGregor. So it looks like the fight is more than likely going to be Logan Paul, the brother of Jake. So we're going to go ahead and break that down. And then we're going to break down the Ring magazine is getting together to host a card in May. So just to dab into that a little bit real quickly, that card is going to be featuring Ryan Garcia versus Jose Romero, and Devin Haney versus Jose Carlos Ramirez. So with that being said, let's dive right in to the potential matchup of Logan Paul, Conor McGregor. So let's get this off and started. So right from the get-go, Logan Paul has been in the WWE. Nothing against the WWE, but he has not been actively boxing. But nor has Conor McGregor. So you have to kind of look at both cards almost in a sense and say, okay, that May card's going to look good for Ring Magazine. That Ring Magazine card is going to look great. That's going to look good. But when you look at this Paul McGregor matchup, and we talk Logan Paul matchup, I think the fight would have looked better as Jake. I think it would have looked better as Jake. And this is nothing against Logan. It's just Jake Paul against Conor McGregor is what a lot of people wanted to see. And I think that was something that they should have reached to make the matchup. But to be no doubt, I think Logan's going to get in there. He's going to do what he has to do. But you're coming back off of boxing against a guy like Conor McGregor that can really get in there. Conor McGregor has fought before in the sport of boxing and fought Floyd Money Mayweather, and I'm sure he learned from that fight. I don't think he's going to be fatigued this time. I think it's going to be much different. You're fighting Logan Paul. Logan Paul has been in the WWE. He's not actively been boxing. He's not actively been trying to get better here. And if Conor brings in a good camp with guys that have helped him before and a good team that worries more and less about him, getting the punching correct to standard, correct to what it needs to be, and understanding that this is what you have to do. This is where you have to put it, not looking at it and saying, hey, oh, who cares about if we get him early? You won't get him early. I don't think either opponent's going to be knocked out early. I think that this is going to be probably going to 12 rounds. So it's going to be a bout of the judges, as I will say, where the judges are going to have to make the decision on this fight. And I very well think that that's going to be something that you move forward with. If the judges are going to be involved in this fight, you've got to make sure that you're not fatigued. You got to make sure that you train your camp to go the distance, because that may very well be the cause. I don't think Conor McGregor is going to get in there and knock out Logan Paul, and I don't think Logan Paul may get in there and knock out Conor. I think for that to happen, it's going to really take a good shot. You're going to have to really be precise. You're going to have to really be on with you're going. I think if you catch him with a right, that might be possible. I don't think you're going to jab your way through the fight and he's going to be, and you're going to jab him to a knockdown. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Conor's got a stronger chin than that, but I definitely think you're going to be in a situation where if you line up your left and your rights accurately and precisely, I think that could become a problem either way. I don't see, even if Paul gets in there and really comes in and boxes heavy, I think Paul can go very well and possibly see something, but I don't see it in the early rounds. If possible, with that event, I see it in the later rounds. I think if you're McGregor, it's possible too. If you come in there correctly, and I'm saying either opponent that comes in there and really lets loose with those lefts and rights and gets in there and really it stays precise, I think is going to be interesting, because that's the guy that's probably going more than likely get a knockdown at the least. I'm not going to say that guy's going to knock him out and win the fight, because those are two great opponents that we're talking about here. This is not going to be something easy. This is not going to be something where it's just going to be like, hey, it's over, it's done with. I don't think that's going to be the case of this fight. I think it's going to be something that goes the distance. I think it's going to be something, if you're going to get one guy or you're going to knock one guy out, you're going to have to try hard to do it. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be something where you say, okay, the guy was knocked out quick. It's not going to be, knocking out the guy quick. It's going to be something where you're going to have to really break him down round after round. And what I mean by breaking your opponent down, we'll get into that right now. Breaking your opponent down means that round by round, you're pumping up the heat. You're getting better and better. This is the thing that Canelo does in some of his fights. When you look at it, when you look at Billy Joe Saunders, this happened. When you look at Caleb Plant, this happened. As the later rounds get on, he started to get more comfortable. He started to punch more and more and more. And it's not just about, he threw more punches. It's about the way he threw them. He was precise. He was accurate with them. He was making sure they had power with them, so that it was starting to crank up the heat, where they were faster punches. They had power behind them. They were starting to take a toll. And when you start to take a toll on your opponent, that's when you're breaking him down. And when you break him down, it's only a matter of time before either A, he falls, B, he gets knocked out, or C, you end up with a ref stoppage. And I think that when you look at that, and there's sometimes when you break them down too late, if you start breaking them down round 8 and you're in a 12-round fight, it might be a little late. You still can get it done, but if it's a Conor McGregor where he's got that strong chin, he's got that chin that's really strong for a boxer. And even as a UFC guy, it was solid in his earlier of his career. But now when you look at the later of his career, I think it still is a solid chin. And I think that's something to be said about Conor McGregor, is that chin that could be very solid. If that chin helps him out and he stays up there, that could be something that becomes very interesting. Very interesting how that chin may play a role. And you could say the same thing about Paul. I know Paul was never, knocked out in any of his fights, but it's going to be the testament. This is a guy that he's got the punch. It's not a boxer power punch, but it's that UFC power punch, and it's got some power behind it. It wasn't enough to power to stop Mayweather, but it possibly could be enough power to the punch if he has a good camp to sit here and stop Logan Paul. Because that's the difference. I think there's a keys to victories either way for both fighters. If Logan gets in there and starts to break him down his fight and starts to get his jab in there, and I would like to see, in those early rounds, a couple left and right hooks, a little left and right hooks, and get a few uppercuts and to start warming up that chin. I think there's a way to go. I think if you're Logan Paul here, you think go to the body. Go to the body. Conor's not used to having that huge hard body shot taking a toll on. He's not used to that. So I think a good, nice liver shot, if you warm it up, could possibly take a toll. Possibly. And I think if you're Conor McGregor, you want to keep him at a distance. You want to use your jab. You want to use your jab as much as you can. You want to kind of jab and keep the distance. And then when he's a little close, kind of tear him up. Left, right, hook, uppercut. And that's what I think. Right hook, uppercut, jab. If you stick to that kind of game plan there, where you're kind of saying, oh, he's close now, throw that jab and put your hook in there. You throw what I mean here is you throw your jab and put your hook in there. Excuse me for the mistake. I said throw your jab and I threw a hook, but you get the point here that you got to stay into that game plan. And it could be something so simple as jab, jab, hook, uppercut, jab. And if you keep that game plan and you stay on that, if your fighter's not figured out what you're doing by that point and you can see it's taking a toll, now you're starting to break him down. You're starting to break him down the way you're supposed to. You're breaking him down to the point where he is now being broken down in a sense that is causing you to win round by round. And this is a way to take the fight. If you can go out there and win 8 rounds, take the first 8 rounds. I would say take those first 8 rounds, because if you have a 12-round fight, you leave your opponent, you leave either or. You could leave Paul, you could leave McGregor. You leave the opponent, the other opponent, either way, in a way where he has to now try to knock you out to win the fight, and he can't take the rest of the rounds. McGregor, when he fought Mayweather, you could see he didn't have every round, but it was the being fatigued. They thought you were going to knock him out early. You cannot think you're going to knock out Paul early, and it's just not going to happen. He's got a chin. McGregor's got a chin. You got to look at, hey, they got a strong chin. It might not play the role of knocking them out early. So that is the weigh-ins take on that Logan Paul, Conor McGregor matchup set in July, I believe, in India. So that should be interesting, depending on if they bring it to that. But let's get into this Ring Magazine first US-based card. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about how this is lining up. We got Ryan Garcia coming back to fight Roland Romero. So that could be an interesting fight because Rolly Romero, didn't do too well in his last fights. But I see this Garcia being interesting for him. I think this is that fight that could show people, hey, I'm not done. I'm not over with. I can come back here. This could be something better for me. Let me go in here and take out Ryan Garcia. Now, if you're Devin Haney fighting Jose Carlos Ramirez, this is another thing. I think get in there, show him you're Devin Haney. Go ahead, put him down. Don't let this one go to the judges. Show him Devin Haney's back. We're done. Now, after that, line up that Haney-Garcia rematch. So now you make it that tail of take. Now you grow it in this sense where it's like, okay, he's preparing himself for Haney, and you say Haney's preparing himself for Garcia, and now you have that mega matchup coming back, and you say, okay, now this is the one. Does Haney win? Or does Garcia show him, listen, it doesn't matter. I'm the better boxer here, and he takes him out again. And if I'm Ryan Garcia, you line yourself up. This time when you go and take him out, when you take him out, you make sure you're clean. You no problems. Don't make no mistakes. Get up there, make your weight. Don't try to weigh in 5 pounds, 3 pounds overweight. Don't do none of that mess. So that they could say, so that they don't have to say anything. So they don't say, oh, he was overweight. That's why he had to, no. Make your weight, get in there, do your thing, and say, yo, I'm Ryan Garcia. This is my name. You know me. You've known me before, and now I've stopped you. And that's one way to look at it. If you're Ryan Garcia, come back to this and show him you're gonna take out Devin Haney. Show him that you King Rye. Bring that crown and show him I'm ready. This is the thing. If you're Ryan Garcia, now if you're Devin Haney, you gotta box your fight. If you're gonna come in here, you gotta say, hey, this guy beat me before, regardless of whatever went down with that fight or whatever decisions were made. You were beat. And you got to say, hey, you got to get over that. And you've got to now box your fight and go in there and beat him this time. So then at the end, there's nothing that could be said. You got your rematch, you beat him. Now, if Devin Haney wins this time, now we're looking at that Dana White stuff. You line up a good 3, and people might say, oh, who wins? Who wins? Third professional bout against both. And you look at that could possibly be something good. But I really think that Ring Magazine card is slated for May. So we don't have to wait that long. Not like Paul and McGregor. That's May. So at this time, we're kind of in February. Before you know it, it's going to be there. This card's going to be there. So I think this is going to be very interesting to see this Garcia, Rolly Romero, and Haney Ramirez. It's going to be really interesting how this event is going to go. I think it's very interesting. I would love to see. Let's line up the rest of this. So let's line up more. Let's line up the rest of this stuff. Let's get more guys. Let's make this a gigantic mega card, because that's what they're calling it, a gigantic card. I didn't coin the phrase, but that's what they're calling it, a gigantic card. And that's something that I think, yes, let's do that. Let's get some more guys on there. Let's get some more matchups on there. Let's stack the card. of boxing. So people look at this and say, wow, I got to see that. You got Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia on that. You got, and I understand, smacking a lot of these guys up, it looks at a situation where you say to yourself, well, they want to be main events. They want to make the money. But you got to say to yourself, listen, everybody can't be a main event, but there are sure boxers out there that are going to bring the money, and they don't have to be a main event, if you hear me. And that's one thing I'm talking about. This Ring Magazine card could bring it. And you line up big undercards, nice fights, and you do it left and right, and you bring some of them homegrown guys and gals. You bring them people that are coming up. You line up them guys that we look at and that we see fighting on Saturday nights at small venues. You bring them guys. You bring the people that we standing up to see. You bring our boys over there, the fighters we know. You put them on that card. You line them up. They're going to show the world how they better, how they're bigger than what's going on here. They could build. And that's the thing we look at here. We want to build better. You know, that's the goal. I mean, in any boxer, everybody wants to be a main event. Everybody wants to get there to where they're main event and they're selling out arenas and people packing up and they fighting for that belt. They fighting for that WBA or that WBC, that WBO or that IBF or that Ring Magazine. It's the dreams and goals of what they want to look at and be as a boxer. They want to be bigger, better. Everybody wants to have a world title. And that's the things we talk about. Everybody wants to be a world champ. And I think there's no better way to look at it. Everybody wants to be a world champ. And when you look at that, some people talk about it's just the money. Well, it's more than that. When you got that belt, you slate yourself down for history. Like, look at Crawford. Crawford is doing everything he can, being undisputed, same ways like Canelo. He's being undisputed. You want to slate yourself in boxing history. You want to make sure that you're down in history. You want to put yourself down. It's everything you want to do. So now, there's some good things that to talk here when it comes to boxing. We're gonna look at some of these comes up matchups. Like, what I can't wait for is Tank versus Roach. Plus, you got Venezuela, if I'm saying that correctly, and Russell. So that's a card that's also been lined up correctly. And I think that there's some very good things that could be said here if that card turns out the way it is. I think that card is going to be amazing. I think that card is going to be good. But all things aside about that card, Ring Magazine could line up a bigger card here. And, if you haven't heard, one of the things that happened is Earl Spence Jr. and Sebastian Fondora's fight has been called off. The fight's off, so that's something that if we looked at that fight schedule, we were looking for that. We were looking for that Fondora Spence fight, and now we're not going to get that. So we almost look at this and say, okay, we're not getting that, but there's some other cards out there. So do to notice that this isn't lost. This is a lot of stuff lined up very well in the boxing world. And I think, I heard KSI's possibly going to think about going into fighting again. So this is one thing I say to that, what happened to lining up Jake Paul? That's the one matchup the fans have been wanting to see. KSI, Jake Paul. And the question is, we don't even know who's running from the matchup. Is it KSI running or is it Paul not setting it up? Come on. That's what started when they started that YouTubers boxing. It was always, hey, I got to get the revenge from my brother. Logan Paul lost to him. And he said, Jake, you got to get the revenge. But they never set it up. So what happened? What are we waiting on? You aren't getting any older. I mean, any younger. They aren't getting any younger. So why are we not setting up this KSI Paul matchup? Get it out of the way. Now you can start boxing real boxers, and we can get you a world title. We can get you somewhere with a world title instead of boxing all these guys that come from bare knuckle and all these other leagues and places. And mm-mm. Line up KSI, finish that out. Now let's start getting you with boxers, ranked boxers. Let's try to do that. Let's at least try, Jake. You know, don't start the thing like your brother. Your brother's gonna go ahead and box Conor McGregor. Which, you know, it's interesting to say here. They were all photographed in a picture. I believe it was the other day or just maybe yesterday. Are you taking this matchup seriously? I understand yours are going, but is it just a matchup, or is it really you want to get in a box here? Because if you're really close and you're doing a matchup, is this just something just for the people of India? Because if that's the case, yeah, great matchup, great card to give them. Those are two guys that are it's gonna be good. But if it's just a payday for the both of you, come on, fans want a good boxing matchup. We'll match you evenly with other guys. Don't just come in and just get in the ring for the hell of it, not just for a check. Come on. Both of you's got money. You ain't broke. So I think you look at this here and you say, is that the matchup they're running with? You know, let's make this good. So, would you look at some of the cards, when you look at old UFC, I mean, sometimes new UFC, when you look at how these guys used to sit at press conferences and go, oh, I'm going to beat you. Like some of the stuff Conor McGregor used to say, how the guys used to have real hatred and really want to get in there and say, I want to beat you. I want what you have. Not, I set up a matchup. I possibly set up a matchup and then it's like, hey, hey, you want to go get lunch? You want to ride together? I mean, I look at it for maybe it's good publicity on your match, but you look at it the flip side. Are you taking it seriously, or is it just hey, we're doing this for one reason or two reasons really? If you look at it, we're doing this because we want to bring a big boxing card to India, which I think is great. I've seen on Instagram a lot of these other countries are starting to get boxing commissions that don't have it. Like we know Italy was one of them. Ecuador got onto the craze, and I think that's great because now you're going to see more fights in other countries, which is pretty good. And even Saudi Arabia has gone. I believe it was Saudi Arabia, and also Dubai. Um, have both gone into it, and I did this boxing thing, and they have good matchups that they're having go over there. That's great. That's great. Loving it. More venues, more places, better, better looking because you see the same fights, at AT&T Stadium, Cowboy Stadium, or MGM Grand, or Madison Square Garden. Now we're starting to get to see it in other big venues, and this is great to see the different reshapings of the venues and it being in another country. So it's another culture coming on, and I think that's great. And I think one of the things you have to look at here is okay, if we're doing this for India to get more card boxing over there and grow it, great idea, great two fighters. But if it looks like we're not going to take this serious and it's just for a check, come on. We need a hard fought matchup here where it's going to be real, where it's two guys getting at it saying, hey, I want to beat you. I'm going to stop you because you're no good. You're the good old trash talking. And I'm going to win. And both guys thinking they're going to win. Not, what it is right now. It's not really being grown to anything that where you're exciting a fan. Where you say, oh, Conor told him, I'm going to knock you out in round 2. We're not getting anything like that. And I think that's something we want to see. We want to see that that old McGregor coming out and saying, "Oh, it's gonna only take me 3 rounds," or you see that Paul that says, "Really, oh Conor, not 3 rounds," and you want to see stuff like that where they're going at it very well, the same way he did against Jose Aldo when he took his belt and knocked him out in the first round. Like he went up against Jose Aldo and said, "I'm gonna be," Jose Aldo said, everybody didn't like Conor at that time. And everybody's like, "Oh, Jose Aldo's gonna stop him. Jose Aldo's gonna make a buffoon of this." But he didn't. But that's the trash talking we want to see. We want to grow this like that. I understand it hasn't started yet, but let's get it started. Let's get it started. You know. And I think it goes to say it was when Logan fought Floyd Money Mayweather. When Logan fought Floyd Money Mayweather, it was similar. It wasn't. It was just a good exhibition, and I understand that. But if you're gonna bring them and show them what good boxing is, you bring them a good matchup. You bring them two guys that don't like each other, and you put a belt on the line, even if it's uh, just a belt for that match, not an official world title. It's like, hey, this is the first India match. It's gonna be sanctioned by WBC. WBC brings a special Indian, Paul McGregor WBC belt, which would be nice. Great, good. But if it's just an exhibition and you say, hey, we're just two guys getting at it, see what kind of money we can get here. That's not a matchup we want to see. Let's show them the real culture of boxing over in India. I would love to show them the great culture we have of boxing here. Get two good guys. Like, I'll tell you what, India, you want to see some boxing? We'll get you some boxing. You get me Devin Haney. You get me Ryan Garcia. You line that card up now. That looks good. Now that's something that they could really see, a good, exciting matchup. Or you bring me what has been talked about, that Crawford, and you bring me Davis. Tank versus Crawford. Bring it over there. That's another good matchup. And show them this is boxing. This is going to be good boxing. So that's one thing you could do. And that's one thing I say, come on, Terrence Bud Crawford, Gervonta Tank Davis, let's line that up. Put it over there. I think, you're going to get better fan coverage than Paul McGregor. But that is this week's Wayne's episode. Streak 5 videos in a row. I'm keeping at it, doing what I got to do, and we'll see you on Takedown Thursdays for the next one. Weighing out.